Dear Melissa, we have quite a large application that is a mixture of EAM, ERP, and CMMS, even more. This used to be a service company that evolved into a product company, or so they say it did anyway. There are now 6 people managing the application, and I was asked to lead that team. I have a question about the product structure. At this time, the structure is based on how we sell it, but the workload is wrong. Some of the products are new and have less work, and others are old and very big, with about 1,400 workflows. And they have 1 PM. So, how do you structure your team around this to make for a successful story? Okay, congratulations. You are pretty much now the head of product over these 6 product managers. When you're capacity planning, you do not do it from how you sell it, but you want to think about what your strategy is. So, the most important thing for you is to figure out how the EAM, ERP, CMMS, all of these different acronyms that you threw at me go together. And where do you want to invest and what needs to be improved? So you're going to look at what the strategy should look like for the next couple of years at a very high level. I'm not talking about getting really nitty gritty. I do not want to see you in backlogs. You don't even need a roadmap for the whole 3 years. It's just, how is it going to morph? How is it going to evolve? What big problems do we want to solve? Where do we want to end up in the future? You set that vision. Now you go backwards and you start to think about, how do I fund each one of those things? So if you've got 6 people, you don't have a lot of people to work with here, but I'm hoping there's some other people working on these products as well. If so, fantastic. If not, you might need a little bit bigger team because this sounds a little crazy. You want to look at which pieces of this portfolio, if it's the EAM, ERP, or whatever it is, all these acronyms, which ones need to be improved, which ones need the most work to help you reach those visions. And then you capacity plan against that. Now, these teams should stay fairly stable year to year. This is a long haul thing. This is not like a project-based thing. You want to make sure that you have teams around each one of these components. And then you want to make sure that you are just fluctuating slightly the size of the team or the amount of money that they have year to year, depending on how much work needs to go into it. So that's where the stable product teams come from. So you probably have, these 6 people managing each part of the application. Hopefully they have teams underneath them. Those teams are not going to fluctuate once you set the strategy year to year as much as you actually think they would, because it takes a long time to deliver on it. So what we want to do is talk about our investment. How much do we want to invest into the EAM? What do we think it could do? How can it grow our business? What's happening right now is it sounds like you're structuring off of how you sell it. Now that could mean 2 things. It could mean that you are doing a go-to-market product landscape where you're bundling things or you're overseeing stuff in the way that you sell it instead of the way that you build it. You need a combination. You need somebody looking at the product architecture. And if it's, if it's bundling those different things, you're going to have somebody else looking at the go-to-market on top of that. So maybe there's a leader looking at the go-to-market on top of those different product architectures. But the way you build it versus the way that you sell it does not need to be one-to-one. You need to make sure there's enough coverage and there's enough people looking at how people use each one of these components to make that happen. So I would take a step back. I would really align on that strategy. And then I would go into, how do I get enough coverage, enough boundaries for each one of these product leaders to look at their product and say, I can do the roadmap for this. I understand how it goes into the strategy. And then I can align with somebody who's looking at this go-to-market strategy, the way that we bundle and sell, and figure out how we fit into that. That's really what I would be looking at for here. So capacity planning cannot happen without a strategy. You cannot do it. Please don't try. It's going to be a pain in the butt. You really want to focus on that first, and then you want to go back in and start to capacity plan around the teams and around the products. You're probably going to want to draw out a product architecture map as well. Nice little diagram of what the different products are. And that doesn't necessarily need to be how they're sold. It could be what the big jobs to be done are around there. What are the boundaries of the product and who has coverage over them? And then you're going to want to finagle that depending on where the vision is going. So that's where I would start with this. It is a big job. And usually when you start on something like this and there's a lot of people and a lot of legacy, 1,400 workflows, it's going to take some time. So tease through it and try to figure out what's important, what's not important, what might I deprecate, what might I keep, and where is that going to go for my vision in the future. Then go back and capacity plan around it. All right, that's it for Dear Melissa this week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so that you never miss an episode. We are out every Wednesday on all of your podcast platforms and YouTube. We look forward to seeing you next week when we'll be back with a guest. And remember to get your questions in at dearmelissa.com. See you next time.